let's get started with question set 1. Question 1a. Among the different style of houses, which one has the highest average value? Since it involves the column value and style, let's first take a closer look at these two columns. I tend to freeze the header, so when I scroll down, I can always see the header. You can do so by going to View, Freeze Panes, and select Freeze Top Row. Now you can scroll down and we can see in column style there are quite a number of different values, such as colonial, cape, ranch, split level, so on and so forth. For the value column, based on the magnitudes of the numbers here, I can infer that the unit used here is probably in thousands of dollars. For example, the first house is worth $315,000, the second $369,000, so on and so forth. Now back to question 1a, the first part of question 1a. If you were to do this manually without a computer, what steps will you take? You can pause the video here, write down your steps, then compare with mine. The steps I come up with are as follows. First, group rows, i.e. houses, so that the same style of houses stay together as a group. Then do the following calculation for each group. First, adding all the value columns into a sum. Then count how many houses in a group. Then divide the sum of value columns by count, which gives the average value for a group. Finally, find the style with the maximum average value, which will be the answer for question 1a. Did you come up with similar steps? Of course, we are not going to do this manually. It's not only tedious, but almost close to impossible to do when the dataset gets large. So I want to show you two ways to implement these steps. First with filter, then with pivot table. Before we introduce filter, the first thing I will do is to duplicate the raw data into a new worksheet, so that if I accidentally change the raw data, I can still recover. So I can do so by right-click on Data tab and then click on Move or Copy and select Create a Copy. Select Move to End. So this is the exact same copy as the raw data. Now I'm gonna rename this sheet as Filter. Now let's go to Data tab and click on Filter. You should see a drop-down button appears at the right end of each header column. Click on the drop-down button on Style, for example. Now you can see Excel has listed all the possible values for the column style. There are 5 of them here, such as Cape, Colonial, Expanded Range, Ranch, and Split Level. Now you can unselect Select All and only select Cape and click on OKs. Now notice only those houses in the style of Cape are displayed in this worksheet. Also notice that the row numbers become blue and they are no longer continuous because it's only showing you a subset of the dataset where the houses are in the Cape style. You can do so similarly by unselect Cape and select Colonial to display the subset of houses that are in the colonial styles. So this will accomplish grouping in our step number 1 that I just outlined. For step 2, we can simply select the value column. And again, Excel will automatically display the 3 basic statistics: average, count, and sum for this selected data set. And again, by reading these 3 numbers, we know they will be 47 houses in the colonial style. Again, remember, 48 includes the header row. And then we also know the total values of all the houses in colonial style is about 15 millions. And the average value is going to be around 338,000. To reassure yourself this is indeed the correct results, let's copy this subset of data out to a new worksheet and recalculate these results. I will first select the data, copy, and then I will go to a new worksheet and click on paste. Now I'm going to use some arithmetic Excel function to calculate sum, count, and average. So for sum, count, and average of this sequence of data. So for sum, I will start with an equal sign and then use the function sum. So in this argument area, we need to specify where the data set is. Again, you can use shortcut to select the whole data range. And again, this is exactly the same number as we have seen earlier. For count, I would again use the function count and select the same data range. For average, we use the function average and again select the same data range. Note that the average is simply the first number sum divided by the second number count. So again, here we can quickly verify the numbers provided by Excel are indeed correct. You can now repeat the same process for each different style of house and arrive at the answer for question 1A. This approach will mirror exactly the menu steps we just outlined, but is still quite tedious. We will next use pivot table, which will give the same results with only a few drags and drops. Let's go back to the filter tab we just created. I will go to data and then unselect filter. Now I'm going to use my shortcut to select the whole data range, including all the rows and columns. And then I will go to insert and click on pivot table. Again, since the data has been pre-selected, we just need to select where we want to output the result into a new worksheet and click on OK. Now you will see that there's this empty pivot table on the left and the pivot table fields on the right. So in the pivot field tables, you can see all the columns in the raw data are listed here on the top portion. And at the bottom portion, you will see this 4 different areas named filter, columns, rows, and values. And in between you can see it reads drag fields between areas below. So Excel use field to mean columns. And based on this description, you are supposed to drag a column here and place it in one of those 4 areas. So if you have never used pivot table before, I'll encourage you to again pause the video and explore it for a bit by yourself. Let's first drag the style column into the rows area and see what happens. Now notice the pivot table itself now displays all the different values in the column style vertically. So this is how Excel accomplishes the step of grouping. So for the step of calculating, if you have guessed that you can just simply drag value and put it in the value area, then you will be right. Notice Excel has calculated the sum of that value column for each group. And since we also want to calculate the count for each group, we can do so by dragging value down to the same value area, but then this time we need to change the sum into count by right-click the drop-down button, coming to this interface, change from sum to count, for example. And then for the average, we can repeat the same process by dragging value down to the value area. Again, right-click the drop-down button, click on value field setting, and then change it to average. Again, earlier we had manually using filter to calculate the colonial styles. We ended up with the same answers. So far I hope you find the pivot table is a lot easier to do the calculation, and it's quite intuitive. So by reading these numbers, we can see that the most expensive house style in terms of average value is the split level at 385 thousandths as average value. I recognize split level has the highest average value by scanning through the whole columns of numbers, which might become extremely hard if you have a lot more rows. So you can also ask pivot table to make this job a lot easier for you by dragging the value down to the vary areas. Again, change it to average. But instead of just showing the raw average, you can also show the value as rank, largest to smallest. So this way, it would actually show you this value is the largest with respect to these values. And again, relying on this output, we know that the second most expensive style will be colonial, coming in at 338 thousandths, so on and so forth. Let's now look at the part B of question 1. What percentage of houses is in this style? By this style, we mean split level, because we just identify split level is the most expensive one, that was the highest average value. So we are trying to see what is the percentage of houses in split level. So you can do so by calculating 46 divided by 362. That will give you the percentage for part B. Alternatively, you can represent the count of value as a percentage by, again, dragging the same column value into the value area. Change it to count. Now again, show the result as a percentage of column total, and that's what we want. So now here you have it. So the answer for part B of question 1 will be 12.71%.